TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcasting from Jerusalem. The United States is doing everything in its power to realize President Donald Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip, applying immense pressure on all related actors, including Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stresses that Israel will remain committed to its national security interests. Israeli opposition lawmakers successfully passed two separate bills aimed at asserting Jerusalem's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. The United States is doing everything in its power to realize President Donald Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip, applying immense pressure on all related actors and maneuvering extensively in multiple regional capitals and beyond. That said, the Islamist Hamas continues to signal, by both word and deed, its unwillingness to disarm or relinquish its control over the Gaza Strip, while also dragging its feet in fulfilling the first phase of the deal, with 13 bodies of hostages who were murdered in captivity remaining in Hamas's hands. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance concluded his three-day visit to Israel today after holding a marathon of meetings, situational assessments, and consultations on efforts to push for President Donald Trump's peace plan. Among others, Vice President Vance met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who highlighted the ironclad bond between the United States and Israel.
In the last year, we've had an unmatched alliance and partnership with the United States. That is changing the Middle East, and it's also changing the world. It creates opportunities not only for security, but for the expansion of peace, which we're working on very, very diligently. And it's just unmatched. I've been here a few years. I've been through several administrations. I welcome the partnership and the assistance we've had, but there's never been anything like that. And President Trump said that. It's like a partnership. It's never happened before.
As the Prime Minister said, these are days of destiny, and we're very excited to sit down and work together on the Gaza peace plan. We have a very, very tough task ahead of us, which is to disarm Hamas, but rebuild Gaza to make life better for the people in Gaza, but also to ensure that Hamas is no longer a threat to our friends in Israel. That's not easy. I think the Prime Minister knows that as well as anybody, but it's something that we're committed to in the Trump administration. And I think that we've, even in the past 24 hours, had a lot of good conversations with our friends in the Israeli government, but also, frankly, with our friends in the Arab world who are stepping up and volunteering to play a very positive role in this. So we're going to keep working at it. I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I know the president was here a week ago to welcome the hostages home and actually sign the deal. A week into it, there's a lot of work to do, but I feel very optimistic about where we are. So thank you for the partnership. Thanks for your willingness to continue to work on this. And I think we're going to do great things here. It's not going to be easy. I know that there are some folks in the media who I think are rooting against this proposal, but I think that we have an opportunity to do something really historic.
It is important to know that despite the warm statements and the keen partnership between the Trump administration and Netanyahu government, Israeli defense officials are worried that Washington wants to secure achievements rapidly, achievements that may come at the expense of Israel's security needs, since several central issues remain unresolved. Therefore, Prime Minister Netanyahu did underscore that Jerusalem would remain committed to Israel's national security interests, while pointing out that the United States also had broader considerations in its approach.
That when it comes to Israel's security, we do what we have to do. Right? That's always the case. That's not a question. But America has an interest in a strong Israel, as you just heard from the Vice President. Israel has an interest in a strong America. America has other interests in this region. Where we can be flexible to accommodate that, that's good, because a strong America is in our interest. And equally, as you just heard the Vice President say again, a strong Israel serves America's interest in stabilizing this very unstable region. And you can't stabilize it without a strong Israel.
Vice President Vance, ahead of boarding his plane to depart Israel, responded to the Israeli fears, stating that the United States would continue to work with Israel and the Arab world to try to make the peace stick.
Look, if this peace sticks, you're going to have these little breakouts of violence. Our message to the Israelis has been, help us build this peace. Obviously, the Israelis have their own interests, but we're going to keep on trying to work with both them and the Gulf Arab states to make this peace stick. Again, 9 days into it, I feel pretty good about it.
Meanwhile, at the Israeli parliament, or Knesset in Hebrew, Israeli lawmakers held a preliminary vote on two separate bills to assert sovereignty over the so-called West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria.
I declare that the bill titled The Application of Israeli Sovereignty over Judea and Samaria Law 5785-2025, proposed by member of Knesset Avi Maoz, has been approved in its preliminary reading and will be referred to the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee for preparation for its first reading.
The Knesset approved both preliminary readings of the two separate bills. The first bill, which was introduced by member of Knesset Avi Maoz, aimed to apply Israeli sovereignty to all of Judea and Samaria, while the second bill was introduced by Avigdor Lieberman, aimed to apply Israeli sovereignty over the city of Ma'ale Adumim. It is important to explain that the votes were merely a first of 4 rounds of required votes before either passes into law, which would require a majority that currently doesn't exist, particularly after President Donald Trump said about a month ago that he would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. It is further important to highlight that both those bills were pushed forward by opposition members. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, who arrived in Israel earlier this afternoon, responded to a question about the parliamentary votes.
What do you make of the Israeli parliament moving forward on potential annexation of the West Bank?
Well, that's a vote in there. Yeah, that's a vote in the Knesset. But obviously, I think the president's made clear that's not something we'd be supportive of right now, and we think there's even threatening to the peace deal. So, they're a democracy. They're going to have their votes. People are going to take these positions. But at this time, it's something that we think it might be counterproductive.
Secretary Rubio, who made those remarks before boarding his plane to Israel, further stressed his optimism of President Trump's plan bearing fruit.
We think it's important for the first 7 to 10 days over the next week that we had senior level administration officials on the ground working to make sure this was all coming together. This was a historic peace deal that President Trump delivered on, and now we have to make sure that it continues and that we continue to build upon it. I think it's all going to work out. Ultimately, there are I think this is a complex part of the world. I think every day is going to bring opportunities, and it's also going to bring some challenges. Okay, we're dealing with decades and decades of this stuff. Every day is going to bring challenge. Every single day, something's going to pop up that we need to fix, or it could harm this effort. But every single day, I think we're also seeing things we never thought we'd see before, like the number of countries willing to participate in this effort, be it through money or personnel or both or expertise. And we've never seen this sort of international cohesion behind something.
Secretary Rubio continued by stressing his outrage over the horrifying conduct of the Islamist Hamas against the civilian population in the Gaza Strip, which clearly projects the terror group's intentions to try and maintain its grip over the enclave, while further highlighting a positive response from Arab and international Islamic actors that had voiced their interest to take on the role of enforcing the ceasefire by sending troops into the terror-ridden strip of territory.
Progress on getting together an international force?
Sure, we're making progress on that, and it's a combination of things. Putting together a force like that requires a lot of work. It's not just people willing. It's not just countries willing to offer forces. You got to have life support. Where are they going to live? How are they going to get there? How are we going to? What is their mandate? How is that force going to be commanded? What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? All of that work is happening, which is why we have the civilian military structure set up to coordinate all of these things. And it'll involve, potentially, we're going to need, some of these countries are going to require an international mandate in order to be able to send forces abroad. But we have been very pleased at the number of countries that have offered to train police officers, that have offered to send forces, that have offered to send money, that have offered other expertise. And we're working through all of that now.
Are you concerned about Hamas repression of Gazans and reprisals against Gazans.
I think we've seen what they've done. I mean, they've gone out, they've gone after, they've tried to make sure that everybody knows that people perceive that they're in charge, and they did it with brutal force. These images were out there. They were putting the images out there.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our updates, which are exclusively donation-based, please take this opportunity to support TV7 Israel with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I would like also to thank all of you who do support TV7 Israel on a regular basis, which makes it possible for us to record those productions and air them on a daily basis. Now, as usual, I would like to encourage you to keep praying for the return of all of the bodies of the hostages who've been murdered by Hamas and remain currently in the terrorist organization's hands in the Gaza Strip. Pray also for the leaders who are making tough choices in this context. Pray also for the Christians and Druze who are currently being besieged by the Damascus regime in southern Syria and the government of Sweden. And pray, of course, also for the Christian community in Nigeria facing Islamist terrorism and genocide, quite frankly. And last but certainly not least, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.